one gummy little piece of bread that sticks to the roof of your mouth when you partake of it. One small sip of wine, diluted at that. That is a feast. Well, what they would want is actually what is prophesied in the book of Isaiah. On the mountain of the house of the Lord of hosts will prepare a banquet, a feast for all people, a feast of rich food, of well-aged wine, of rich food filled with marrow, of well-aged wine, streamed, decanted, made clear. Now that's a feast. And it doesn't do any good to the outsider to say, well, actually, this table and that table are connected. This is what the one that we see in time, that's the one that we will enjoy in eternity. And in fact, parenthetically, that eschatological table has much more to do with this table than even the Passover supper. Something new has been inaugurated. Something that was not expected, particularly within the context of the Passover remembrance, the liturgy, as it were, that was used. No one would have ever expected any host to pick up bread and to call it his broken body, or to pick up a cup of wine and said, this is the new covenant poured out, my blood shed for you. And so we would say, but to get to this table, you have to go through this one. But how do I do that? Because I can't see how they're connected. But they are, but only by the words of Jesus. My flesh is food indeed. My blood is drink indeed. Unless you eat of the Son of Man and to drink of his blood, you have no life in you. Oh. I now begin to understand what is being asked of me. Because what is being asked of me is to take the words of Jesus and to do as he asked, even though I can't see with the natural eye what he is describing. I'm asked to trust him against all that my natural senses tell me. In fact, what my natural senses tell me is that at best, this is foolish, if not scandalous. And Paul would stand to the side and say, yes, it is. It is foolish. But I don't want to be a fool. I want everything that the Isaiah banquet describes. I want to be financially prosperous. I want to eat at the best restaurants. I want to look good and be well thought of. I want to be a sophisticated member of our society, well thought of. I have no interest in participating in anything that would be described as foolish, particularly one that was inaugurated by a man held up to public derision in the worst kind of execution that has ever been devised by humanity. Is that what you're asking of me? And the answer is yes. Yes. Because to see with spiritual eyes and to come here and to receive is not just an act in and of itself. It is, in fact, an invitation to a way of life. His way for us. Where I choose to live with the meager for the sake of the generosity of God. I choose to act on that which I can only see by faith, and even then only as a dim reflection in a mirror, and yet called to act on that anyway, even though I do not see it with my natural eye. I need God to so change my affections so that what Paul writes in Thessalonians is true. Without having seen him, you love him. How can I love what I do not see? How can I receive at this table and believe somehow that what I'm receiving is more than just this pitiful little piece of bread and this sip of wine? How can I appropriate those things as what Paul calls spiritual food that feeds what I cannot see, to make me what I do not anticipate, to cause me to fall in love with a God who I cannot perceive with the natural eye, to be faithful, actually recklessly courageous, to the point of being thought of as foolish, with nothing in the physical to affirm that that is in fact the way, the truth, and the life in following Jesus. Is that really what you're asking of me? Yes, it is. You're challenging everything about what I believe to be true, to be knowable, to be worthwhile. Aren't you? Yes. Will you do it? That is what is being asked when we come here. Because it only is, to quote the hymn, it is only by faith that we receive the cup as from thine hand. And yet, that is what is given to us. And it is, in fact, an extraordinary invitation to deny the reality of our physical senses for the sake of entering into a narrow gate that few find. To be able to extend our hands and receive this very meager piece of bread, and it become for us the medicine of our souls. To choose somehow to live in a way that is contrary, considered foolish by the world, for the sake of a kingdom that is only now just beginning to break through. Because the call to eat is also the call to live in a very particular kind of way. It's a way of servanthood. It's a way of sacrifice. It is a courageous way where we're called to do things that appear genuinely foolish in the eyes of the world for the sake of the fruit that may or may not be visible to the naked eye. It, in fact, to the rational, makes no sense. And yet, that is exactly what is being asked of us. So as we enter into this time where it would have been far more appropriate according to the world for this one whom we serve to come riding in on a white horse, just it would make far more sense for us to eat and drink at a lavish table if we serve a king. Instead, we're invited to eat richly for the soul, but meagerly for the body. To serve one who instead came on a donkey and was subject to the most derisive form of execution for the sake of whom we will greet him riding on that white horse that is always